stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Okay, so for you, it's probably only been like a week, maybe less, depending on when exactly you're listening to this. I've actually been off for a little bit. I banked up a few episodes, and then I wound up taking a little bit of a mini vacation where I visited my parents and then got married, actually. Anyway, all this to say that this recap is actually going to be a little bit trickier than usual. There's been more time since the last time I played, so I may miss out on some of the details, but broadly speaking, the last stuff I remember was Emile reacting to the Chaos Crystal, making its big old beam in the sky. The last session was a big flip-out session about that. Yeah, and Emile was able to get it under control with the help of Fern, I believe, came with him last time. Yeah, they worked together to get that under control, and oh, that's right. He was using his like fringe research to split it into a couple of pieces and then get one piece to nullify the other. And then he had to explain to people what was going on, and the people in like the communications room had found out about this signal, and they were busy decoding it while Emile carefully brought it into the workshop. He was able to get it inside with a bit of an argument with, God, what's his name? This is the stuff that the names I'm definitely blanking on a little bit more because it's been a little bit more time. Let's see. Firestarter. He had a bit of an argument with Firestarter involving disabling the hover chair in order to get inside. Anyway, long story short, he was able to get it under control, gaining a little bit of respect from Firestarter. And the main change that happened by the end of the session was Emile was able to convince the people of Concord from the top down, like convince Valkyrie to spread the word that Emile is getting too much friction. Like, now that there's a really ticking clock on, like, based on the signal having been pumped out there, the Imperium is going to find this place. And unbeknownst to them, also the servants of the Wooden Heart are going to find this place. But there's a ticking clock here, and Emile thinks that they can defend against even the Imperium's arrival, but it means that people have to stop giving him a hard time about every last little thing he tries to do. He's barely been able to start his project of salvaging the Reacher, which he believes is the key to also defending against the Imperium, because there could well be ships inside, little snub fighters that are ready to go. Their armor is strong enough that they may well have survived the magma, or at least they'd be in a state where they could then be repaired. This is what they need to do. Emile was successful at changing those minds. He got Valkyrie to basically put out the announcement, like, at this point, when Emile asks for something, it's as good as Valkyrie asking for it for these current purposes. Like, it's almost like the equivalent of going under martial law where, right now we need to take extreme measures. And those measures include giving Emile a lot of authority to just get this done. Those are the broad strokes. Clearly we ended pretty well because I see my momentum is all the way up at plus 10. Now I decided, because of, this tension going on, the pressure, the time pressure of these things that I just alluded to, we really should represent that with some clocks. So I've made a few tension clocks here. A couple of them are related. I did a little bit of thinking about how this is going to work. So one of them, the first clock that I made, is the arrival of the Wooden Heart fleet. The servants of the Wooden Heart, they're on the lookout for this sort of thing. They already had scouts going off in all kinds of directions looking for chaos crystals, or some kind of way to allow them to cross realities. We know the chaos crystal is key to that sort of thing, especially one as big as this has become, able to shoot off a signal like that. So I gave that a 4 o'clock, because I think honestly, this is kind of what they're looking out for. So they would be hot and ready to follow this signal and get there very quickly. The second related clock that I made is the arrival of the Imperium fleet. Now, I gave this one a 6 clock. And let me talk a bit about why these are separate and how I'm going to adjudicate them. For one, the Imperium is longer because while yes, they definitely are very interested in Cinder and finding the people of Concord, they are less specifically looking out for exactly this. Like, I think it would take them a little bit more time to realize what that signal means. You know, they are going to hear it and they are going to eventually follow it, but I think they'd be lagging behind a little bit more. So I gave it a 6 clock instead of a 4. Now, I think mostly, if I choose to pay the price by increasing one of these clocks, for the most part, I think I'm going to increase both of them. You know, these are kind of operating on the same timer. It's almost more like there is a 6 clock, and when we hit 4 out of 6 segments on that clock, the wooden heart is going to get here. Or the servants of the wooden heart, not the wooden heart itself. I kept them separate, though, because while I can't foresee exactly what it would be right now, there's a chance that maybe a specific move would make more sense to advance only one of the clocks and not the other. Like maybe something that we failed to do was more directly addressing the Imperium, for instance, and so that clock would go up but not the wooden heart. You know, something like that, where maybe it would make more sense to only do one of them. But I think in general, when one of those clocks increases, both of them are going to, and it's just very likely, unless we specifically draw the Imperium here faster, that the wooden heart servants are going to get here first. Okay, so those are those 2 clocks. Relatively simple. I'm hoping they don't already come up this session, but I figure, you know, we really need there to be pressure on that. I don't want it to just be arbitrary and allow Emile to take as much time as possible to be ready for it. Like, I very much want the possibility that they are just not ready when the fleet comes. Like, they're not ready to fight back. And I think with only 4 and 6 clocks, that's very possible. Now, it's still on me, the player, to decide when do I want pay the price to increase those clocks versus something else. But it gives me some interesting choices to make along the way. You know, a little bit of where do I want to push it. Anyhow, there's a 3rd clock that I made that is unrelated to those, at least not directly related. I made another 4 clock. This one, unlike the other 2, this is a campaign clock though, so it's going to increase generally more slowly, but it is going to increase over time. This campaign clock that I made relates to Magpie. Because we talked a little bit a couple sessions ago about how, you know, Emile fucked up when trying to get Vert to go, like, fuck up Magpie. He screwed up there. He pushed Vert too far. He made Vert look at himself in the mirror, basically, and realize what he was doing. And that got Vert to really fall away from any amount of goodwill that he had gained towards Emile. You know, Emile was slowly building that over time, and he really lost it in that one move. And I mentioned at the time that now Vert might be, if anything, more swayable by somebody like Magpie, who is looking to gather like-minded individuals into, like, joining his side. So the way I thought about this is, I think Magpie, you know, from the moment that we met him, he's been a political opportunist. He has demonstrated, first, potentially allying with Emile, but that he wanted to move up in the ranks here. He was originally looking to do that by really being involved in this project that Emile has going on. And when Emile cut him out, he's pivoted. And so I've named this clock Magpie Coup. Because I think what Magpie is doing in the background during all of this, slowly, you know, it's not a full tension clock, it's a campaign clock. Magpie is determining who his allies might be. Because I think, you know, when word gets to Magpie about how the pressure is on and the Imperium might be coming and there are these dangers, it's going to make Magpie see an opportunity here to demonstrate that Valkyrie, as, you know, their new leader after Sage died, Valkyrie's been dropping the ball. Or at least that's the message he's going to pitch. You know, Valkyrie's choices have put them in danger, and Magpie is going to present himself as the person who can keep them safe. And he's going to be campaigning that idea, you know, not as an official campaign or anything, but just in that sort of slowly changing minds and getting a coalition on his side. He's going to be pitching that idea based on the idea that Valkyrie has just given this stranger, this person that a lot of people around here still hate, Emile Spencer, functionally the keys to the city. She has said, everybody obey this person. This, you know, it's not going to be hard for Magpie to be like, he's a murderer. So anyway, it's that sort of thing. It's political machinations that are going on in the background. If that clock fills up, that is going to represent Magpie having enough power to indeed do this coup. Like, he'll have enough key players on his side, And I think every time that fills in, we'll do a little bit of a vignette to demonstrate, like, who has he gained? Yeah, I think Vert is definitely going to be among those people that could be swayable, but he's going to get major key allies, and eventually, if nothing has stopped this from happening, or made it just irrelevant somehow, Magpie is going to take over as the leader of this place. He's going to have enough power behind him to just oust Valkyrie in, it may not be a violent coup, but it is still going to be an overthrowing process. We'll look into exactly what it looks like if the time comes. And if that happens and Emile does not have a way out of here, the campaign is going to be centered around, fuck that guy. So it's once again not going to be a safe place for Emile to be, however that looks. He may undergo mob justice. That's around the time where Emile better have a ride out of here, or better have changed that from happening. If Emile catches wind of it, there may be stuff he can do to stop that from happening or win back the key allies. This is a clock that may well be able to go backwards. It's not explicitly part of the rules of Starforged, but I'm borrowing that from other clock-based games where you can remove segments. Anyhow, that went from recap into just here's my plan with all these things I have set up, but I figured it was worth going into. And worth, for my part, it's worth me talking them out to really internalize them. But that's all out of the way. I am not going to do a vignette this time, but because we do have a campaign clock, the rules of the game say that at the beginning of a session, we need to make a check to find out, does that campaign clock advance? So I need to set the odds for it, because this session is going to be a little bit more broad strokes. I don't think we're going to go like moment to moment. This is going to be a little bit more montage style where we hit the key moments as Emile is trying to get this place ready. So some amount of time has potentially passed, enough to at least make this plausible that maybe this clock is advanced. And, word has spread around that Emile is in charge, or not officially in charge, but like give him credence. So let's see. Do I think it's a small chance this is advanced, unlikely, 50-50, likely, or almost certain? Well, I think at best we're talking 50-50 here. I don't think it's as bad as small chance, because Magpie, while not that loved around here, like, he is a mover and a shaker. I don't think it's that level of unlikely he'd have seized on this opportunity. So I think we're either unlikely or 50-50, because, this stuff does take time to truly sway somebody into being an ally and not just like setting the groundwork. In order to not take too much time, I'm going to go with my gut on this and say it's unlikely. He's getting started, but it's going to take a little time. So that means we're looking at a 25% chance of this happening. Let me ask the Oracle. Our question, of course, is Magpie able to secure an ally in his coup attempt? Yes, he is. I rolled a 23. That's within the 25% chance. So, okay, right away, we actually do fill in 1 out of 4 segments on Magpie's coup attempt. So I'm putting that in. I said we weren't going to do a vignette, but I also said that every time that filled in, we were going to do a vignette. So this is going to be the one. It's not an official begin a session vignette, but let's take a look at how a little bit of a scene when he secures this ally. And I think for the sake of keeping this moving for me, I'm going to go with first thought, best thought, which is let's have him secure Vert. Maybe this is an extension of that scene where, last time we checked in on Vert was, beating himself up over having let go and having lost his cool and punched Emile really hard in a weak area. I don't think it would make sense for Magpie to have been like such a little spiderling to have known and like walked into the doorway and like talked to him right then. That was my first thought, was like maybe right away there's a knock on the door, but he doesn't have enough allies for that to make sense. He doesn't have his little birds all over telling him what's going on. So this is going to be later. And let's see. I'm going to use an oracle in a bit of an atypical way. We're going to use the derelict oracles, the settlement ones. We're going to use the derelict oracles to come up with like, where does this happen? Where we're going to find a reason to justify why they meet up in, let's see. Okay, it's in the living section, and the specific area, and that makes sense. Specific area is, Okay, I rolled new zone via access. In this specific case, the way I'm using this, I don't think that really makes a lot of sense. So that was a result of a 90. I'm going to try flipping that. Flipping that to a 9 is galley or kitchen. And okay, that can make sense. Now, importantly, this is not mess hall or dining. That's a different result. This is indeed literally the kitchen. Why don't we say that because we know the mess hall used to work on Chaos Crystal created food, but it's been on the fritz, right? Firestarter has not been able to fix that. And so maybe it's usable, but too much of the results it's like buggy, so sometimes they just have to throw stuff out. And as a result, they've needed to have a little bit more of a secondary, like true traditional kitchen where they make supplementary food because they've just got to keep up with demand. And so there are some things that are just cooked traditionally, or perhaps ways of taking the food that it does make and really stretching it a little bit more. You have your Chaos Crystal created food that then they turn into like soups and stuff, ways to just kind of stretch the calories a little bit more. And so because there's not wildlife out here to cook or anything like that. And they'd probably be hard pressed to grow a lot in this very inhospitable environment. So yeah, we're going to say it's this very impromptu sort of kitchen where where they stretch things into stews and soups and stuff like that. And the reason that Vert is here, perhaps he's on the job. We have him doing his like enforcer duty, everything like that. Oh, you know what? We have talked in the past about how, Magpie's job isn't managing the junk pile. He does do that, but he's got another role on this ship. Maybe this is the moment where we see that, where, at least for now, Magpie is getting involved in this impromptu kitchen. Maybe that's even part of his like goodwill journey to try and, get a good photo op kind of thing where he's like volunteering in the soup kitchen, quite literally. So Magpie is in there when Vert is otherwise like on the job talking to somebody else who's also been, or maybe Vert is bringing in somebody there who has gone negative on their credits, right? They're not doing enough community service. And so Vert has collected them and is like physically brought him in to be like, you're going to work in this soup kitchen. So he like has somebody by like the scruff of the neck and just like shoves them in here. And maybe Magpie is like in charge. He's like running this joint, but perhaps because some amount of this came from the junk pile, like some old things that could be repurposed into a cooktop. Magpie has brought them over. Maybe that's what's going on. Okay. I keep spinning this in different directions because I'm trying to get a good foothold on how it all makes sense. Magpie isn't literally cooking here, though he will be volunteering. More what he did was running this little side kitchen because he had the supplies in the junk pile and saw the need for it all and is, again, using this for a good kind of photo opportunity. Like, look at what I'm doing to help out our community. And so he found the parts and he set up this side kitchen. And so he kind of oversees it and watches as Vert brings another set of hands to just be working in here. And, I'm not going to go moment by moment, but Vert shoves him in, has a bit of a conversation about how, he points to Magpie and says,
"This is the guy you report to."
And he, looks over at Magpie and says,
"And he's going to tell me if you're not showing up and not doing your part in here. We're running by on scraps here, so everybody has to do their part. That includes you."
Magpie just looks over to Vert and says,
"Yes, absolutely. We can always use more hands in here just for... There's a lot of stock to be moving around, as long as you can lift and carry, water is heavy, we can always use extra hands. Do you have any special skills I should know about?" Anyway, they figure out the details. But at one point, once they get this freeloader getting to work, and at first probably just stirring a pot, don't just take this spoon and keep it stirring. I'll give you something else to do later, but just stir this pot. I'll be right back. And Magpie catches up with Vert as he's leaving and says, "I have to thank you, Vert. You've always been, a very civically minded individual here. Even though you've just arrived, you've slotted in and are doing your part. And that may sometimes be something of thankless work, but all the more reason why I just wish to say I see you and I appreciate what you're doing and what it says about you as a person. So, thank you. And thank you for considering my little operation as valid community service. I certainly like to think we're doing good work here and can always use the hands. Yeah, well, you could do a lot worse. Thank you for looking out for it. I don't know. I mean, you saw a need and you filled it. And thankfully, as opposed to some people who seem to be trying to fill voids and take on pet projects, I have no history of ever having bombed this place, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, trust me. I read you loud and clear. Can't say I'm much happier about it than you are, but... well, you heard what Valkyrie said. Guess we're just gonna have to take it for now. For now. Yeah, I think that was the proper way to end that sentence. Tell me, Vert, do you trust him?
And Vert, I think even holds back spitting on the floor because they're near a kitchen. He thinks about it but then doesn't and just goes,
hell no. I've traveled with him longer than the rest of you, and let me tell you, that guy's shifty as hell. He'll say exactly what you want to hear to get what he wants. Doesn't mean he doesn't always help, but trust him? Hell no. I've given him too many chances already.
And Magpie's grin just kind of expands and says,
we should talk more sometime, when we're both not working, Perhaps I can buy you a drink. Yeah, I think I'd like that.
And we'll just cut out there. We fade away with the implication that Magpie is totally going to continue swaying Vert to be full on let's be friends. Let's both hate Emile together. All right, and with that out of the way, this is probably the longest introduction to an episode I've ever done before getting into, the action of Emile doing something. I suppose other than the episode that I played Vert the entire time, in which case Emile didn't do anything until the very end, but in an Emile-focused session, let's finally do it. So I mentioned we wanted this to be broad strokes. So let me think, what is the top priority right now? What is the first move when they're on the clock like this and Emile finally has, not a literal army, but just there are easily hundreds of able-bodied people here that are ready to start doing even the manual labor and stuff. Emile just has to coordinate it. I think probably one of the first moves, Emile, he's a doer. He's not a manager. So he's taken on this big project, but this is outside of his wheelhouse. He doesn't really know how to properly coordinate this many individuals. And thankfully, he has a good friend and connection, Zephyr, that that's specifically what she's good at. She is a manager. As a connection, the thing that she helps Emile with is literally, I wrote, managing a crew. It doesn't get much more applicable than that. So Emile is going to have to talk with Zephyr about how do we coordinate this many bodies? What is the best thing they can do? Because I think Emile recognizes that he needs just manual labor. We need bodies with shovels outside, taking speeders over to the area, digging a trench that is nowhere near the lava, but just getting a trench ready to be able to divert it. We just need fucking ditch diggers. It's not a real heady operation, but these are ditch diggers that are also miles away from the base camp. So there's logistics involved. We got to get them there with a limited number of speeders. There and back, we got to swap them in and out in order to not just wear them out. They need equipment. They need to be fed. Doing that kind of labor is going to mean even more food supplies. So it's coordinating also the kitchen with that. So many things go into making this actually work well on this kind of a time crunch that Emile needs Zephyr's help desperately. So I think in the name of doing this in broad strokes, even though it sounds like I'm making preparations and securing an advantage here, I'm actually going to treat this as full-on face danger. And not just because I already have 10 momentum, though if I have to be honest, that is part of it. But the reason I'm doing this isn't just coming up with a plan to better do the next thing. They are executing a plan, and that's what makes this a face danger. They are committing to, with her help, this is the way that we get this done. This is the system. This is the schedule of who does what where, who's going to be best at what types of things. They're just implementing it, and if it goes poorly, that could interfere and take more time. So we're just going to skip straight to that. So this is going to be a face danger, and it's definitely with resolve, command, or social ability. I guess you could argue it's expertise, focus, or observation. You could say wits, but I think this really does lead more into the command side of things. You know, Emile, with Zephyr's help, is issuing commands for scheduling and all that stuff. It's real broad strokes, so it's heart with a +1 because Zephyr is helping us. We got a full 10 momentum, and let's see how this goes. Okay, without even using momentum, that was a strong hit. Did very well on it. Got a 9 on my action versus a 3 and an 8, so it just barely overcame the 8, but it did. So you're successful and take +1 momentum. So what that means to me, because we can't take the momentum, they come up with a good plan. You know, as we go into all of this, operations are going smoothly. You know, in the background, in addition to whatever Emile is specifically doing, because this is a strong hit, we can count on the ditch digging progress is going smoothly. It's efficient. It takes time, certainly, but like that aspect of it, of like the ditch that can be dug without just like a digging implement that's going to have like, because they're going to need machinery to get through the lava part. That's too dangerous for individuals, but the part where they can just safely have people just digging a canal, that aspect of this plan is going smoothly. I don't think that alone is worth getting a hit of progress on salvaging the Reacher from magma. Not until that's like if they were officially finished with that, maybe. But this is just, it's in progress and it's going smoothly, so not yet. Okay, so knowing that is done, what would Emile next do? So we know we got to get this digging implement ready. That needs to be done in time. And while I say that, I'm actually thinking a little bit about my workshop asset that I have, because part of the second part is, you know, when you obtain a crucial part or resource pertaining to this vow that I've already done, mark progress on the quest and take +2 momentum. When you devote extended time to the project in your workshop, face danger at a +1 on a hit, mark progress. Like, I got a few ways to make progress around this workshop. Now, the crucial part or resource in this case, that's going to be the actual, I'm thinking of the chassis of the old broken down digger that they use to hollow out part of this base. And as we know, that sort of thing would probably exist in the junk pile. Now, Emile doesn't have to necessarily get it himself now. He's got a crew of people working on it. Like, he can just assign people to do it. But it is Magpie's junk pile, and if anybody were going to push back and try and sabotage this project a little bit, it would be Magpie. So ordinarily, I might say you can just do it, because it's all there. There's no real risk involved, except that Magpie is going to be standing against him. So I think in this broad strokes as well, this is about making sure Magpie can't interfere. And I think Emile's going to try and out-chess match him here. He knows that Magpie is a savvy opponent, and is like, if he is there and knows what Emile is trying to do, he's going to try and interfere with that. You know, he may well have already anticipated this and made it harder to find in the pile, stuff like that. He may have buried it. So I think the way Emile's going to try and get around this, he needs to, you know, juke Magpie a little bit. Make Magpie think that he's doing one thing, but actually doing the other. So how's he going to do that? I mean, he could literally just try and make sure Magpie is somewhere else. I guess Emile could know that Magpie has been working in the kitchen. He's not there all the time, but maybe he could make something... Okay, let's keep it relatively simple. It's not a full-on out chess matching him, but Emile knows that Magpie talks about this system that he has, right? You know, he's trying to organize this pile. And Emile anticipates that Magpie has probably anticipated Emile's getting this digging implement. And so Emile was like, he's probably made it harder to find, because that's what I would do. You know, he's trying to put himself in the shoes of, if I were trying to be shitty to somebody, what would I do? So anticipating this, Emile does also know that because Magpie is so into organizing the pile, he wouldn't do this arbitrarily. His system would somewhere note where it's been moved to, or there'd be some kind of logic to it, Emile guesses. So what Emile is going to do is this is going to be a gather information roll, where Emile just needs like feelers out there to know, when is Magpie verifiably not at the junk pile? When is he in the kitchen doing something for a while? because Emile's going to need access to like really take time going through looking for a computer or like where Magpie keeps his notes, where he needs to figure out Magpie's system. So here's how I want to do this. I think Emile needs somebody in volunteering in the kitchen, because then if he's got somebody on the ground working for him, at least vaguely. Oh, you know what? We mentioned how part of the plan, in order to dig all the trend, like food service was part of this. So Emile knows, because of that last strong hit, they have individuals that are specifically working the kitchen to supplement and you know, make these big stews and stuff to nourish the body of the workers. Maybe that's even why the kitchen is so necessary, is because of all this additional physical labor. And so the kitchen has had to expand. It's become a bit more of an operation because they really need supplemental food, while Firestarter is still trying to fix the regular like buffet line kind of thing. So Emile knows who's going to be in the kitchen when. He just needs to convince one of them to like make a little bit of a problem. You know, like just remove one part. Like it's relatively easy, but make one of the burners not functioning. Not the full cooktop. Just like one burner on the cooktop is not functioning, so that Magpie will need to be there looking into the matter, right? Like occupy his time a little bit. It'll be a known, easy thing to fix. Nothing that is like truly broken, just like a missing part. And sure, maybe Magpie will think that's suspicious later, but it doesn't matter. Emile just doesn't want to be in a situation where Magpie is there able to crush him in the junk pile again or anything like that. So we're going to do a compel move where whoever is working in the kitchen here, let's get a few details about this arbitrary person. So I'm going to roll a couple of oracles here, and let's see. This character goes by the name Zephyr. Rolled a 100 on that. Zephyr. Okay. So Zephyr is one of the workers who is going to be in the kitchen. First look, they are slight and flashy. Interesting. So I see this like, it's like reed thin and wearing like full on like glamour kind of clothing. Like I see them in this like long gold sequined coat that just like catches the light everywhere. They wear these like real avant-garde big sunglasses. They've got these like rhinestone gloves. This is like a prima donna. Like this person sees themselves as a performer, and I feel like they've got a hell of a personality to them. I'm not going to roll their role or goal. Initial disposition, maybe. Wanting. Okay. Perhaps Zephyr even sounds like a stage name. Like this person would be doing like David Bowie shit. Zephyr is left wanting because clearly they're not being fully utilized. Their true talents are not being appreciated. And I think Zephyr might be the type of person who has been forced to do this because they went into like negative credits, because just Zephyr wants to be a hotshot doing glamorous kind of things. And I think usually they're probably somebody that used to be on the Beowulf, that's more used to being out there doing vault hunting kind of stuff and like real flashy sort of shit, solving problems. But they needed a break. They needed some shore leave, and so they stuck around and are not fitting into this place very well, because that is not what's needed here at all. And so they're not fitting in too well. And Emile has seen that and recognizes like, okay, this is a person that is looking to be more of a hero. And so Emile is going to capitalize on that. Give them a very special secret agent job to do. And I think this was all randomly rolled, but I feel like this works perfectly. So Emile catches Zephyr at some point, not when they're directly on the way to the kitchen, but Emile's having a conversation just in like his quarters or something like that. He's like, "Your name's Zephyr, right?" "Well, haven't you just got me pegged, honey?" "Yeah, and Emile's like almost blushing, because I see like everything about Zephyr is like at least mildly sultry and like innuendo-y. Like everything is a little, or flirtatious. That's the word I'm looking for. Everything is just a little bit flirtatious. I also kind of see Zephyr as being like almost like a little aged out. Like Zephyr is getting a little old. Like definitely got some gray hair and stuff, and just like they're holding on to their youth and old glamour. Like really makeuped up and everything. Like they are dolled up, holding on to, like not willing to accept that they're old now. And so are just like a little bit of that extra flirtatious.
Well, haven't you just got me pegged? Yeah, anyway, from what I hear, you've been doing some bang-up work, helping get everybody fed, but, correct me if I'm wrong. Not quite exactly what you figured you'd be doing? Is that fair to say? Well, I'm certainly not one to be digging out in the sand, I'll tell you that much, but no, I never exactly saw myself as just doing kitchen work. Let me ask you, what did you came from the Beowulf, right? Absolutely. What did you do with them? I don't think we really didn't get the chance to meet back when I was there, but what did you tend to do? Oh, honey, let me tell you, my jobs weren't exactly their most flashy when on the ship itself, but there were times when they needed a little bit of, well, not the wet work that you might think of when I say wet work, but a friendly face on the ground to, interface with other people and find out some of the preliminary information in order to help us find vaults. And, well, when that happened, well, that's where Zephyr was able to truly shine. Yeah, I'll bet. Listen, I don't know. When I look at you, I get this feeling, right? Like, you just seem like a really capable individual. You draw my eye in. If I'm being honest, you draw my eye in. They like gesture up and down their body. Which part was it? Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I feel like you could do some greater things. Honey, I can do all the things. Just tell me what you want it to be. Zephyr like scoots a little bit closer. Emile blushes again and is like, not that exactly, but I got a favor I could ask of you in the kitchen. Oh, don't tell me you want just like a special soup or something. You had my hopes up here. No. No, something much better than that. Sounds like you're used to doing spy work, yeah? You could call it that, yeah. I've done my fair share of intelligence grabbing. What are you saying? It's something in that regard? Are there secrets to be found in the kitchen I'm not aware of? Not exactly, but I could use somebody who's used to working clandestinely. I'm sorry, doing what? Keeping a secret, doing something secretive. Zephyr once again gestures to their entire body with all the gold sequins and rhinestones and everything and says, I'm sorry, did you looked at me and you saw somebody that could just blend in and do something secretly? Honey, I'm a little bit worried about your judgment here. I see below the surface. I think you know when to be loud, and I think you know how to be loud in one way to distract from another place. You're capable. At least I believe you can be, and let's find out. The kitchens are being run by Magpie, yeah? They certainly are. Yeah, well, Magpie and I, we don't get along all that famously. So, I could really use him to be occupied for some time. I just don't want him to be at the junk pile. I don't want to be interacting with him. I got to be searching around in there, and I really don't want him around. So, I was thinking that maybe you could keep him busy by just doing just a little bit of sabotage. Nothing permanent. All you got to do, and Emile like pulls up on his hologram, like he shows like a little bit of a schematic on the stove. This part right here, it's next to the igniter. It's just gonna make one of the burners not work. All you got to do, you pull that, make a big scene about it, about how your station is not working, draw in Magpie's attention so he has to look into it and solve that problem. It's gonna buy me some time. That's why I think you're the one for this job. I feel like you know how to make a scene. And we're going to make this compel roll. This is definitely trying to be charming, so it's going to be with heart. And it as well is a strong hit with no need to use momentum again. The dice are being really nice right now. So, Zephyr is going to do what we want or agree to our conditions, take +1 momentum. I think clearly Emile has said all of the right words that Zephyr wants to hear, especially that ending there about how you can cause a scene, and Zephyr just goes, oh, please, my name should be up in lights. I will play this part to perfection. Thank you for the opportunity. When do you want it to happen? So they hash out the details. This buys Emile that opportunity. Zephyr's going to do it. I'm not going to make that a roll. It's just Zephyr's going to do this well. Right person for the job. The oracles gave me a very fitting person for this. Was not counting on it fitting that well, but this is perfect. So no roll, not even asking the oracle. Zephyr totally is going to be like the best person to make this take as long as possible.
So, with that opportunity afforded, Emile now needs to do a gather information roll. Because he needs to search for clues, he needs to find Magpie's system so that he can then find the actual object. Where is Magpie keeping the old broken down chassis and everything that remains? Where is the old digger located in this massive junk pile? Because if there's one thing he knows for certain, he knows the catalog isn't complete, he can't just look it up at the computer system, and even if he could, Magpie probably has it in a different location. So what he needs to know is, what is Magpie's ideal way to sort things? Because he anticipates that this place will be where Magpie wants it to be, not where it last would have been left. So we're going to roll wits, as Emile has alone time in there to just go over all of anything Magpie has ever written down, anything in the computer, any old records of where things moved about, all this stuff to just hone it down into how does Magpie like this to be done. So we're going to make a wits roll. Okay, this is a weak hit, but I could turn it into a strong hit with a momentum burn. I don't know if I want that badly enough. The weak hit is fine. It just means that it's going to complicate my quest. And then I would take one more momentum that I can't use. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'd rather save the momentum for a bigger moment. We're still not paying the price. I still don't have to up a clock or anything. So how does this complicate my quest? What does Emile learn about Magpie's system? Okay, I've got it. Magpie, his system is less about sorting things by type and more about sorting things for structural integrity, right? He doesn't want the pile to collapse or crush things. He's very into that. And so what is complicating about figuring out this system is that this digger, being very massive and heavy, is going to be on the bottom of the pile where it is the most buried piece you could find because it's going to be that dense. And so Magpie would have sorted it to the bottom. However, Emile does know the system now, and so I think he has a good idea of where in the pile that's going to be. Where is a fresh area he would have moved it to? Or at least he can look out for signs of things that... Yeah, okay. He can look for areas where it looks like things have been moved recently, because he knows if Magpie moved this to a bottom of a pile, he would have had to move a lot of stuff out of the way first, then put it at the bottom, then build a lot of things back on top of it. So anything that looks like it's been too settled or anything like that is a sign it's probably not that part of the pile. Oh, I was going to say he would use his AR on this to help him sort this out, but I just remembered that's broken. He has not had a chance to fix that yet. Quick note from the editor's room. Yes, I just realized that in that last scene with Zephyr, I did describe Emile using hollow projection from his AR system to show them this is the part. Just a quick retcon, Emile would have described it instead. Easy to get around that problem. He wouldn't have had access to it, but there we go. Back to the stuff happening now. Now we are in broad strokes, but I think this would take a lot of time, and he's got his best window right now where Zephyr is doing stuff. So I don't think he wants to go back and just utilize it, fix his computer to be able to do this. So he's just going to have to do this himself. Man, but my tech asset of making a computer program to a very specific complex function would be so perfect for this. Okay, you know what? Well, I'm going to risk it. Emile's going to take the time to leave and try and fix his AR first and then come back. And what this means is I'm going to have to ask the Oracle whether or not Zephyr is still buying time. How long does this take? So Emile is going to leave. He's going to head back to the workshop. He goes into the fixery, and because he has access to the workshop, he is repairing, though he's repairing in a facility, not in the field, so my first asset doesn't really help me here, but my gearhead will. Crafting, repairing, repurposing, or modifying equipment or technology. So I take +1 and a +1 momentum on a hit. So this is just the repair move. So it's a wits move. I get a +1 because I am a gearhead, and we're at a facility, so let's do this. Okay. Once again, strong hit without any need for momentum, though the challenge dice tried. I rolled a 7 and a 9, but I happened to roll a 6 on my action die. I got a full-on 10, so it beat both of those. So I'm at a facility. I have 5 points to spend. Now, repairing any other device is 3 of those points, so that's 3 out of 5. I would get momentum on a hit, but I don't have room for it. We have 2 more points to spend. So there are a couple of things I could do. I could fix one broken module, which I can't do. Again, this is usually on a starship where I could fix a broken thing maybe in the workshop itself. I could clear a battered impact on a vehicle. We don't have one of those. I could give integrity to a vehicle. Again, we don't have one of those.
Take +1 health for a mechanical companion. Well, we don't have one of those explicitly, but that does remind me. I actually got an email recently from Hungry Badger. Hungry Badger emailed back again. We've gotten some input in the past, but this is in response to one of the prompts. So a few episodes ago, I gave a prompt to help me come up with a new spot in Concord. So I asked for a medical area involving abandoned gear, an encounter with a friendly survivor named Buzzard, who is mutated and scarred. Hungry Badger had an idea for a medical/research area where there is a medical or assistant droid with some very basic AI, kind of like Ironsides, who got heavily damaged but is reparable. Hungry Badger added that it would be fun if Buzzard were somehow mutated by the VY572 fragment that was on the ship. So anyway, some really cool thoughts there that I decided I was going to take elements of that and twist it a little bit. And I wanted Buzzard to be a piece of broken down, like one of the projects that hasn't really been finished here in the workshop. Because we know this space the fixery is full of all kinds of abandoned projects and stuff. Buzzard is one of them. Buzzard is this old, like pretty simple, just metal chassis, like definitely not, you're never going to confuse this with a person or anything, but just, I think of, if we need a good Star Wars comparison, think like K2SO. That kind of droid, where just pretty big and just bulky and metal, but not currently functioning. They're broken down inside the fixery, and they're mutated, I'm going to say, because Buzzard was actually once used as like the original droid that had to put in, there's the Chaos Crystal in the galley, right? The buffet area where they turn that into food. Buzzard was involved with setting up the containment area that would like harness that energy and put it to use, because it was too dangerous for human hands to do. So they set up this robot to do it. And that meant that Buzzard was successful. They got it set up, but got just altered by the Chaos Crystal, just changed some of their anatomy. Like they're not fully robot anymore. There's just we're going to roll to find out what's different about them, but there's a change. Part of their body has been altered, and they haven't been functioning ever since. So it's been an abandoned project here in the fixery. I think I would like to take these 2 points and repair any other device, but with a complication or malfunction. So we can have an especially just fucked up droid here that could be a helper. And Emile kind of looks and sees Buzzard here and recognizes that thing looks big and strong and capable of helping sort out all kinds of stuff here. This could be a good helper for all kinds of stuff, but especially in the junk pile. So Emile has enough of a eureka moment to know, he thinks he sees what's wrong with it. Once he gets his AR back online, it identifies a problem as he kept looking over and glancing at it curiously. And so he figured out a simple way to get it fixed. Not perfectly, but at least getting it going to help. And he just can't help himself. He's got to know if he can. So first things first, let's find out, how was Buzzard changed by the Chaos Crystal? As usual, I'm going to roll a descriptor and focus to get an idea. Ruined and art. Oh, that's it. What if... Okay, so what that makes me think of is the Salvador Dali melting clocks. I could definitely see part of... in addition to looking like K2SO, this just stout, hardy droid, one entire... one of Buzzard's arms, and maybe the side of their face, the upper right quadrant of Buzzard in general is drooping and melted like one of those clocks. It just became liquid melty metal for a bit, and is at all kinds of weird angles. It re-solidified, but it's all wrong and messed up, and so that arm definitely can't work. And maybe that's the complication or malfunction. Emile is not able to take care of that. He can fix enough of it so that Buzzard can at least turn online and work again. Can get the processes going, but one of the arms he's not been able to fix that. Buzzard can't see well from the right side and can't use a right arm. It's there, but just all kinds of melting, and it drags along the ground, so it makes a lot of noise. It's not horrible screeching all the time, but it's not stealthy. Because, yeah, maybe even the whole torso is a little bit just shifted to the right, and it's almost like a hunchbacked droid at this point. Just because of a little bit of that lean. And so, yeah, just the melty sort of arm drags along the ground, makes noise, and can't be used.
Maybe Emile will fix it someday, but still, even one robot arm, that could be of great use sorting through the junk pile. Like, this droid should be able to lift a lot. So Emile takes this opportunity and not only fixes his computer without incident, but fixes, to a degree, Buzzard. Buzzard comes back online and says,
Hello. Awaiting command.
I think Buzzard is very simple like that. You know, this is very, very simple intelligence. More of a homunculus than anything. Just golem-like, set him to a task. Emile just says, follow me, await further instruction. And, you know, noisily, just dragging along that arm, stands up, does this. Emile takes him back to the junk pile. Okay, so again, in broad strokes, we have the moment. Oh, let me, I said we need to ask the Oracle if Emile still has his moment. Because this did take time. I'm going to say that because Emile had somebody that was so good at, like, doing drama and making this last a while, and was so on board with it, like it was a full strong hit, I'm going to leave this at likely that he still has a moment. That Magpie is still distracted. We're going to leave that at likely. So, is Magpie still distracted? Yes. Still would have been the case even on 50-50 for those who expect me to basically give that tidbit from now on, and I'm one of them. Still would have worked on 50-50. But yes, Emile still has an opportunity here. So, comes in. He, on the way over, is going to be setting up this program to be able to find the most likely parts of the pile that have been, like, shifted the most recently, and use that in conjunction with the claw that he knows exists, and with Buzzard, all of these people working together, all these factors working together to identify and uncover the item in here. So, let's create a computer program. This is going to be, it's really more of a secure and advantage than a face danger, I think. Because I can do this with either. But I really don't see what would be dangerous about this exactly. So we'll do it as secure and advantage. We get to add +2 and take 1 momentum on a hit. That won't matter. So here we go. Secure and advantage wits with a +2. Okay. Once again, this is a weak hit, but I could burn momentum to turn into a strong hit, but it's particularly on secure and advantage. I do not care. We're just going to take the +1 on my next move, as opposed to getting both options and also getting momentum that I couldn't do. So we get +1 on our next move, and 1 momentum that we can't get. And we're not burning momentum for this. So we do that. We're now going to use that computer to identify the right location and start... Like, this is all just going to be one move. Just uncover this thing with the help of Buzzard and the claw and the program identifying the right location. All that working together. Can we find this thing? This is a face danger because we've certainly seen that anytime that you interact with this pile, it's at least a little bit dangerous. We've seen it shift before. At some point or another, Emile is going to wind up having to be there. So, like, there is danger involved. Especially when you're uncovering something that deep. So, to be honest, I think I'm trying to figure out which stat makes the most sense, because I can make an argument for a few of them here. It's not my own personal agility and mobility, but we are moving stuff around. I think that's too weak of an argument for edge. Resolve, command, or social ability. Well, I am certainly commanding Buzzard to do stuff, so it could be a heart move. But he's programmed to follow orders, so I don't think that's the most likely. My big question is the danger really about the iron, the strength, endurance, or aggression of just moving stuff out of the way? And, like, sort of. It's not my own personal iron, but that is very relevant to what makes this dangerous. Though I suppose by that same logic, the speed of doing this before Magpie gets back could well be a thing. It's not really a shadow move. I'm not trying to conceal that I did this. Wits. To a degree it's wits. It just feels like I'm being too easy on myself if it's just like... Because the wits part isn't the danger part. The program's handling that. The wits is really... I'm going to make this an edge move. Because I think what's making this dangerous is that Emile is trying to do this quickly because he has a narrow window while Magpie is distracted. And so as a result of that, things might be done a little bit carelessly, a little bit dangerously. Yeah, let's do this as edge. So, I have a +1 on this because of our secure and advantage. And in addition to that, because we are using this program for its specific purpose of finding the spot, I can re-roll any dice. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. Okay. So I rolled a weak hit. Now there was a 1 on my action die, turning that into a 4, and one of the challenge dice was a 10. So I'm going to re-roll my d6, and I'm going to re-roll that 10, because the d6 can, in either case, they can only get better. I'm going to leave the 3 alone. So let's see. The new d6 result is a 6, so that got way better. So now I have a 9 total, and the new d10 is an 8. Okay, perfect. So that turns into a strong hit. As well it should when we're that prepared for it. So that program is used now. We can't benefit from that anymore, but we found a specific thing to do. So we're successful. We take +1 momentum. So in this case, we do indeed successfully move everything out of the way. We find the spot. And the claw is part of it, but also definitely, I think Buzzard's main job is helping to, like, Emile is basically like taking the claw, moving pieces, and just dropping them somewhere. And Buzzard is doing the little amounts of work to be nearby, tidying up to, like, make sure what's left doesn't crumple over. And if it does, Buzzard will be trapped, but not a living being. So Buzzard is helping, like, brace things and make sure that everything is structurally sound. And it all works perfectly. They pull this off, they uncover underneath, like, here is the digger. They have found it. It's huge. So Emile's going to have Buzzard stay here looking after the thing while he grabs they're going to get one of the, like, hover carrier things, that the little skiffs. They're going to bring that in here. Emile's going to get the claw, drop it on there. I'm going to make that one more move, because that's its own kind of danger to, like, free this from the pile and onto there without everything collapsing. Before I do it, though, I'm going to do one more check to see, like, is Magpie still occupied? And at this point, that definitely took some time to go through this pile. And, like, honestly, I'm going to drop that 2 levels now. Past 50, I'm going to say it's unlikely he's still occupied. Because we've done some major things that take a lot of time. So is Magpie still occupied with unlikely? And we get no. And even on 50-50, it still would have been no. Magpie is not occupied anymore. And perhaps the reason why is Magpie is indeed, he's come back for a part, to fix this thing. He's come back to the junk pile. And so when Emile comes back with the skiff, Magpie is also there. Now, it's just Magpie, so he's not going to, I don't think he's just going to assault Emile right away. But I do think he is going to interfere with this process. And the way he's going to do that, it's tit for tat. I think Magpie, while Emile is, like, getting the skiff over and everything, getting it in place, Magpie is going to disable the claw. He's going to sabotage it in a way that he knows how to easily repair it, but he's going to remove a part. Because he sees what Emile has done here. He's a smart guy, he's put it all together. He removes a part so that the claw can't work anymore, and so Emile's not going to be able to get it on the skiff just like that. So Emile comes back over and he goes to the controls. And Magpie, I don't think he's, like, there lording it over Emile or anything. Magpie is simply going to, like, he sees Emile in there, he sees what's going on, he notices what Emile is going for. He very quietly takes his opportunity to sabotage, like, remove the piece, something very critical, pocket it away, and just leaves the room so it's nowhere to be found. I don't think Emile even knows that Magpie came back. Emile still thinks he has an opportunity here. So he goes back to the controls and they're not working, and he's just, shit, what the fuck? These were just, and he, like, starts going over and trying to figure out what is going wrong. And he sees that, like, something very particular to this is missing. It's not just like a power core or something like that. It's something that's hard to just easily replace. It's very particular to this exact machine, is making sure that the power can't move through. And it's something that, like, I don't know what it is as a player, but Emile recognizes that it would be too hard. Like, it would take a long time to try and, like, fashion a new one or find a new one. Like, it's a very delicate instrument, like nothing that you could just easily, like, scavenge and, like, put together an ad hoc one. It would take too much time. So Emile knows that if he wants to seize this opportunity to, in his mind, get it before Magpie comes back, He's going to have to get this loaded on without the help of the claw. It's just going to have to be him and Buzzard. But as for how that goes, that's a question for next time. Well, as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time that time doing a lot of preamble stuff and really setting up. This may not have been the most action-heavy episode, but I don't know. I really enjoy just every time we can get those little bit more details. I loved finding out about Zephyr. I also loved about finding out about this kitchen, like all these little things that are helping make this more of a real place. I don't know. To me, these are important as we go forward and spend a lot of time going into the nitty-gritty of how do we solve this problem on a clock. Now, I know, speaking of clocks, none of them did advance this time because we had just a full session of no paying the price. It's incoming, don't you worry. This luck is not going to last this way forever, and we're going to start doing things that are a little bit less in Emile's direct wheelhouse. But on the subject of things that I really loved, I had an idea for this week's prompts. I really loved the addition of Zephyr to this, and I want the prompts to be related to Zephyr. What I am asking for this time is I want another one of Zephyr's just like flashy garments. I see Zephyr as having like all kinds of different costumes and stuff and like different ways of dressing for different occasions. I'm going to roll a descriptor and focus, natural, and monument. Go avant-garde, do whatever you want with it. This is a person who is just dying for your attention. What do they wear related to natural and monument? Tell me all about it. Send your ideas to starforgepod@gmail.com. I always look forward to this sort of thing, but this one in particular, I'd love to get some answers. So let me know your ideas, and for now, play me out, music.